World Rugby Rankings as of the 15th of March, which is a couple of days ago. As I record this, a little bit of movement again, partially based on the results in the Six Nations. And also, there's been some movement beyond the kind of 14th spot that I got here with some of the other games going on in Europe. But yeah, we'll have a look through the rankings. Who's changing? What are the possible outcomes after one more week of the Six Nations before that competition is done? For the France and Scotland game, which still needs to come. But yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts. Springboks, how many times am I going to say this? Still unmoving. They haven't played in a long time, but their preparation series is underway. So they at least got some club rugby going on in South Africa, which is definitely good news. I haven't seen any of the games yet, which is mightily disappointing, but hopefully I can catch something before the whole thing's done and dusted. If you guys are watching those games, let me know what the quality has been like, because I know some people were pretty critical of the Super Rugby Unlocked competition in the Currie Cup, but there were still some good games in that competition as well. Coming out of lockdown can sometimes make things a bit tricky. New Zealand is still there, 88.95, also unchanging based on their results of last year. But England is one of the sides who have shifted. They are back up to third, swapping places with France. Those two teams, if you didn't know, they met each other in last week's round of the Six Nations, and England managed to get the win 23-20. So yeah, England, in terms of their points, they're up from 85.63 to 86.41, whereas France down from 86.9242 to 85.64. So basically a point has exchanged between the sides. That's how the world rankings work. And it's close enough that England go back into third. So maybe some of the relentless criticism of Eddie Jones's failure to rotate guys and his consistency in his picking will ease off for a week. You never know. And maybe the hype train around France just takes a little bit of a step back, but we'll see. We've still got another round of games to go. Wales are no change. They are in fifth, 83.97, and their points haven't changed, despite the fact they gave Italy a bit of a hiding at the weekend. The gap between them is so much that Wales does not gain anything from it, so they are steady as she goes, having made in recent times a remarkable kind of shift from this area all the way up here. So it's been quite the campaign for them. Ireland actually have turned things around because they were on a wee bit of a plummet of their own. But maybe Ireland has been a little bit deceptive in their results, man, because they've had a couple of narrow losses and now they've had a couple of good wins. So that means they are up into sixth, up from seventh, 82.55 up to 83.72, which drops the Aussies down. Obviously, the Aussies haven't played. They have just been passed by the Irish. So, yeah, it's down one for Dave Rennie's guys without playing a game. Opposite fortunes are true for the Pumas. The Pumas are up one without having played, whereas the Scots, another kind of, someone called it a false dawn. After that result in the Calcutta Cup where they beat England, it seemed like the Scottish side were going to do something special, but it's not quite happened. So Scotland are down to 80.12. They were on 81.29 previously. Then there's nothing doing with any of these teams in terms of Japan, Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa. However, Georgia is just slowly accumulating those points, man. Remember, Georgia had wins over Spain and Portugal recently, so two games over the Iberian teams, and Georgia have moved up from 72.49 to 73.31. And Georgia's always the one. I think I saw a stat that said in the European competition they play in, they're on a huge winning streak. It's unbelievable. It's almost the reverse. I don't know if it's quite as long, but it's the reverse of the Italian losing streak in the Six Nations. It's a heck of a winning streak. So that structure of that competition, meaning Georgia often gets wins, means they just keep accumulating points, whereas the Italians on their losing streak just can't gain any points in terms of the world rankings. I'd like to see Italy play Georgia sometimes. Might give us a better idea of where they're at, because the Italians look really bad when they're getting beaten by teams quite high up the rankings, and the Georgians look really good when they're playing teams a wee bit below them. So it'd be nice to have something. I'm not saying the Six Nations does promotion relegation. I don't think that's on the cards anytime soon. but it would be certainly nice to see Italy play Georgia every now and again. So that would give us all a better indication of how close are these guys. Yeah. Like I mentioned, Tonga, Samoa have moved. Italy's in 15th, no change after their loss. USA's in 16th. Uruguay is up because Spain is down. So Uruguay's up to 17th, Spain's down to 18th. Romania, Russia are the same. But Hong Kong, Canada, and Namibia are all the beneficiaries of Portugal having lost to Georgia and having lost to Romania. So Portugal are down to 24th. Lots of rugby to come. In terms of the potential outcomes this weekend, obviously if Italy get a victory over Scotland, they could really rocket up the rankings because they would get some pretty sweet pointage from that one. But if they lose, then they'll be going nowhere further down and Scotland will not be improving. So Scotland at best, well, they've still got the game against France, but at best ninth until that final game against France. Ireland could continue their rise if they beat England, because remember they've been plummeting down. But yeah, if they beat England, they could go back up. So it's a bit of a both outcomes quite possible. Like sometimes you get a situation like England. Even if England beat Ireland, they're not going to catch the All Blacks. Doesn't matter if they beat them by 50. But England could go down if they lose. France versus Wales. Wales will pass France if they win that one. I think, yeah, it'll depend if England win their result as to whether France can go up or not. But yeah, that's how the world rankings are sitting. Remember, we've also got, aside from the Six Nations this weekend, it's also Russia versus Georgia. That, I would imagine, is kind of like a bit of a rivalry. I don't know what the local rivalries are like. I don't know who Georgia considers their biggest rival, but I would imagine Russia would be up there, and then Romania is also playing Spain. Remember, Romania beat Portugal, but lost to Russia. So, yeah, plenty for them to be playing for as well. But, yep, that's the world rankings as we sit here in March 2021. As I said, one more round of the Six Nations 2021 to go. Plus then there's that extra Scotland-France game which needs to be played after being postponed. But then we'll have a bit of a drought on international rugby for a wee while. So enjoy this one, guys, as we go into this last kind of big round of international fixtures. Not just the Six Nations, but some of the other European games as well. What do you guys reckon about the rankings? Who do you think is the strongest looking of the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere teams? I'm assuming most people would like to see more matches between Italy and Georgia. I think that could only be good for the game because, as I said, it really looks like Italy are bad and that Georgia are super when they don't play each other, but they keep having their respective winning and losing records. But from memory, Italy's record against Georgia is actually pretty strong in recent times, but I stand to be corrected. I haven't looked it up. Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. Talk to you again soon. See you later. Remember, guys, if you want to get yourself your hands on some rugby gear from teams around the world and heaps of club teams as well, check out World Rugby Shop. You can find gear from teams like Samoa, the USA, Japan. There's gear from countries which maybe aren't stocked by all suppliers. So, yeah, check out World Rugby Shop, and when you're at the checkout, if you use the code 2 Cents Rugby, you will get yourself, if you spell it correctly, a sweet 10% off. So, yep, check out World Rugby Shop, guys. I'll put a link in the description, and yeah, talk to you guys again soon. See you later.